Enter the realm of ancient wisdom and strategy with The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Unleash your inner tactician as we unlock the secrets of victory in this timeless masterpiece. Delve into the mind of a strategic genius and discover how his teachings transcend time, guiding leaders, warriors, and visionaries to success. Brace yourself for a journey that will reshape your perception of strategy and leadership. Welcome to The Art of War. The study of warfare carries immense significance for a nation as it holds the power to shape its destiny, determining survival or demise. Therefore, it necessitates meticulous examination and careful consideration. By conducting a thorough examination of 5 key elements, we can acquire comprehensive insights: doctrine, Tao, weather, Tian, terrain, Dai, leadership, Xiang, and methods, Fa. Tao encompasses the harmonious connection between leaders and their people, instilling fearlessness in the face of danger. Tian represents the ever-changing weather and seasons. Dai signifies the distance, terrain conditions, expansiveness, narrowness, and their impact on the safety of troops. Xiang embodies qualities such as composure, wisdom, fair rewards and punishments, genuine concern for subordinates, courage, decisiveness, and high expectations. Fa pertains to the organizational structure, division of responsibilities and authority, and allocation of resources. A thorough comprehension of these 5 aspects is crucial for superiors. Those who possess clear understanding can attain victory, while those lacking comprehension will struggle to succeed. Hence, by evaluating these elements, we can assess the circumstances. Which faction exhibits cohesion between leaders and their subordinates? Which side possesses skilled commanders? Which party holds the advantage in terms of timing and terrain? Which group can effectively enforce laws and regulations? Which force boasts well-trained and formidable soldiers? Which camp has a transparent system of rewards and penalties? By weighing these factors, I can ascertain the eventual outcome. If a commander adheres to my strategies and achieves success, they shall be retained. However, if a commander deviates from my strategies and encounters failure, they shall be relieved of their duties. By embracing advantageous strategies, we can establish a favorable position and garner external backing for our endeavors. Seizing the initiative based on principles that favor us allows us to build momentum and advance towards our goals. The essence of warfare lies in deception, where one feigns weakness when strong, pretends not to have aggressive intentions when planning an attack, and disguises proximity or distance to confuse the enemy. A wise strategist entices a greedy opponent with enticing rewards and capitalizes on chaos within their ranks. Caution is exercised against a powerful adversary, while a hot-tempered foe is provoked to cloud their judgment. The insecure and cautious are manipulated to become arrogant and overconfident. The physically strong are worn down, while the internally united are sowed with discord to weaken their unity. A successful military strategist strikes where the enemy is least prepared, employing surprise attacks when least expected. Such tactics cannot be predetermined, but are the hallmarks of a masterful commander. Prior to the commencement of a battle, the side anticipating victory possesses a greater number of favorable conditions, whereas the side foreseeing defeat has fewer advantageous circumstances. The side enjoying more favorable conditions stands a chance to secure victory, whereas the side lacking such conditions is unlikely to triumph, especially those devoid of any favorable factors. Given these considerations, I can anticipate the outcome of victory or defeat. The fundamental principles of military operations are as follows. When lightly equipped, a well-prepared army should possess a formidable array of 1,000 vehicles. When heavily equipped, the frontline troops should exhibit great strength. The army ought to comprise 100,000 well-armed soldiers, with provisions to sustain them over 1,000 live distance. The necessary expenses, encompassing the needs of both the front and rear, the cost of hosting dignitaries, and the supply of essential materials such as glue and paint, along with the provision of chariots and armor, would demand a daily expenditure of 1,000 gold pieces. Only with such ample resources can a force of 100,000 troops be effectively mobilized. When a war drags on without achieving swift victory, it inevitably dampens the morale of the troops. A prolonged siege depletes our strength, while prolonged exposure drains the nation's finances. As the army grows exhausted and its combat effectiveness wanes, coupled with dwindling supplies, other feudal lords will seize the opportunity to launch their own offensives. Even the wisest leaders will struggle to rectify the situation. Therefore, military affairs prioritize speed over clever strategies that prolong the conflict. History has shown that long-term military campaigns rarely benefit a nation. Without understanding the harm of protracted warfare, one cannot fully grasp the advantages of decisive military operations. An adept military strategist avoids the need for repeated conscription and continuous transportation of provisions. Instead, they procure resources from foreign nations and seize supplies from the enemy, ensuring a steady provision for their army. Long-distance transport of provisions leads to the impoverishment of both the nation and its people. When the army is stationed nearby, prices soar, resulting in a decline in the wealth of the populace. Taxes and labor demands increase as well. Depletion of resources and finances leads to the impoverishment of families in the central region, causing a significant decrease in income for the people and a substantial loss in public assets due to vehicle wear and tear, horse fatigue, armor and arrow consumption, and damage to weapons and shields. Hence, a wise commander would resupply provisions within enemy territory. The act of utilizing one unit of the enemy's provisions is as valuable as transporting 20 units from one's own country, and acquiring one unit of forage locally is equally beneficial as transporting 20 units from one's own country. The act of defeating the enemy is motivated by determination, and acquiring their resources necessitates securing their provisions. In battles involving chariots, those who capture more than 10 chariots should be commended, beginning with the soldier who first captured them, and the flags on the seized chariots ought to be replaced. Assimilate the captured chariots into your own forces and treat prisoners of war with compassion. This approach ensures victory over the enemy and strengthens your own position. Hence, in matters of warfare, the utmost importance lies in achieving victory swiftly without yielding to delay. Skillful commanders who grasp the art of wielding military power possess the authority to determine the fate of both their troops and the nation's security. The principles of warfare are: the ultimate strategy lies in compelling the enemy to surrender their entire nation, surpassing mere defeat of their army. Subjugating the enemy's entire force eclipses victory over a single unit, while causing their entire infantry to surrender outweighs triumph over individual soldiers. Similarly, achieving the surrender of an entire squad surpasses the defeat of a single squad. Therefore, attaining victory without resorting to force represents the pinnacle of excellence in warfare. The optimal approach is to achieve victory through strategic maneuvers, followed by diplomatic negotiations, and then by defeating the enemy's military forces in combat. The least preferable option is to launch an assault on their fortified cities. Siege warfare should be considered as a last resort, as it involves extensive time and resources to build siege equipment and earthworks. Recklessly sending soldiers to scale city walls like ants may result in the loss of a significant portion of the army without capturing the city, leading to catastrophic consequences. Hence, a skilled commander strives to compel the enemy to surrender without engaging in direct battle, coax them into relinquishing their cities without a lengthy siege, and swiftly eliminate the enemy forces to minimize prolonged conflict. The goal is to achieve a decisive victory while preserving valuable resources and advantages, thereby exemplifying the strategy of strategic attack. The strategy for deploying forces can be summarized as follows. When facing an enemy, encircle them if you have a 10-to-1 numerical advantage. Launch an attack if you outnumber them 5-to-1. Divide their forces if you have a 2-to-1 superiority. Hold your ground when forces are evenly matched, and disengage and avoid them if you are outnumbered. It is important to note that a smaller force that continues to engage in combat against a larger force will likely be captured. A capable general is invaluable to the state, as their unwavering support strengthens the nation, while insufficient support weakens it. The monarchy's actions can either benefit or harm the army in significant ways. For instance, if a monarch issues orders for advancement or retreat without considering the army's circumstances, it burdens the troops and undermines their effectiveness. Similarly, if a monarch interferes in the internal affairs of the army without understanding them, confusion and discord among the soldiers may arise. Furthermore, when the monarch meddles in strategic decision-making without comprehending the army's overall strategy, it breeds doubt and uncertainty among the soldiers. Such confusion and doubt render the army vulnerable to attacks from other states, ultimately leading to the self-destruction of a nation. The foundation of anticipating victory consists of 5 key elements: recognizing the opportune moments to engage or refrain from battle, skillfully commanding forces of varying sizes, fostering unity and cooperation throughout the ranks, being thoroughly prepared to face an unprepared enemy, and empowering talented commanders without constraints from a monarch. Mastery of these 5 aspects lays the groundwork for anticipating and achieving victory in warfare. Hence, it is emphasized, gain knowledge of both you and your adversary, and you shall avoid peril in any conflict. Knowing your own strengths without comprehending the enemy leads to a 50-50 probability of triumph. However, neglecting to understand both yourself and your opponent ensures defeat in every encounter. In ancient times, skilled warriors would focus on achieving invincibility, positioning themselves strategically to seize opportunities and defeat their enemies. The key to unbeatability resides within the warrior, while the power to overcome the enemy lies in understanding the enemy. Skilled warriors can establish an impregnable position, yet they cannot compel the enemy's defeat solely through their own forces. Therefore, victory can be anticipated but not compelled, as it depends on various factors and the dynamics of the battlefield. The key to remaining undefeated lies in a strong defense, while the path to victory lies in a potent offense. Defense is employed when forces are limited, ensuring protection and concealment like an underground fortress. On the other hand, offense is employed when forces outnumber the enemy, striking swiftly and unexpectedly like a sudden aerial assault. By combining a robust defense and a skillful offense, one can safeguard their own interests while securing resounding triumph. The pinnacle of excellence lies beyond merely foreseeing victory. Even if the world praises such triumphs, it does not signify true greatness. Like plucking a single strand from a wild animal's fur or perceiving the sun and moon, these do not showcase exceptional abilities. Skilled military strategists of ancient times conquered easily vanquished foes. They do not seek acclaim for their wisdom or martial prowess, for their achievements are not hindered. This is because their strategies have already secured victory. They merely defeat enemies destined for defeat. Thus, adept warriors position themselves in an invincible state and seize every opportunity to overcome the enemy. Hence, successful armies enter the battlefield with a thorough understanding of the factors that lead to victory, while vanquished armies plunge into battle without a clear path to success. Competent tacticians uphold the fundamental principles of strategy and execute their plans with precision, possessing the ability to shape the outcome of a conflict. The principles of warfare can be summarized as follows. Firstly, the size of the terrain influences the capacity of available resources. Secondly, the capacity of resources determines the size of the forces that can be mobilized. Thirdly, the size of the forces determines the comparison of strength between opposing sides. And finally, this comparison of forces ultimately determines the outcome of victory or defeat. In essence, each aspect builds upon the previous one, creating a chain of interconnected factors that shape the course of warfare. Understanding the circumstances and knowing how to leverage advantages is crucial in warfare. The victorious army cleverly utilizes a weight against a feather, gaining a clear comparative advantage. By contrast, the defeated army falters, employing a feather against a weight, lacking the necessary advantage. Like digging a deep channel from the highest mountain peak and accumulating water, the victorious force becomes an unstoppable force, propelled by their strategic understanding of the situation. To effectively lead a large army, one must approach it with the same precision as commanding a small unit, emphasizing proper organization. Engaging in warfare with a sizable force requires skillful command, treating it like a small contingent, and employing effective strategies. By combining conventional and unconventional tactics, the entire army can confront the enemy without faltering. The art of attacking the enemy can be compared to effortlessly smashing an egg with a stone, achieved through deceptive and calculated forces. In every conflict, traditional forces clash, yet triumph is achieved through unorthodox strategies. Those adept at employing unconventional tactics are boundless, resembling the perpetual motion of celestial bodies and the unfaltering flow of a river. It is an eternal cycle, akin to the rotation of a sun and moon, an endlessly recurring pattern. Just as the fundamental musical scale consists of only 5 tones, their combinations are infinite. Likewise, the 5 primary colors can be endlessly blended, and the 5 basic tastes can be savored without limit. The same principle applies to the fusion of conventional and unconventional tactics in warfare, an inexhaustible realm. Who can ever fully explore their potential? Skilled warriors harness the force of swift-flowing water, carrying the weight of their actions with powerful momentum. Like a bird of prey, they swiftly capture opportunities with agility and speed. These warriors accumulate momentum, akin to drawing a bowstring, and unleash it abruptly, just like pulling a trigger. Amid chaos on the battlefield, the key to success lies in maintaining the composure of one's own troops. By carefully organizing their formation, they can navigate through the confusion. It is crucial to maintain order while appearing chaotic, demonstrate courage while feigning timidity, and exhibit strength while disguising weakness. The organization of troops determines their order or chaos, their disposition determines their courage or timidity, and their formation determines their strength or weakness. Those proficient in the art of manipulating adversaries could assume a particular stance that the enemy will inevitably adopt. By providing enticing advantages, the enemy will unquestionably embrace them. Utilize incentives to control the enemy's actions and strategically position formidable forces to await their response. Expert commanders understand the importance of overall momentum rather than individual skill in warfare. They carefully select personnel to establish a favorable disposition. A commander skilled in creating such a disposition is akin to manipulating wood or stone. Wood and stone remain stable on level ground, but roll effortlessly on steep slopes. Similarly, a skilled commander generates favorable momentum akin to rolling a boulder down from the summit of a towering mountain, harnessing its tremendous force. Skilled commanders understand the importance of timing and strategy on the battlefield. By arriving early and waiting for the enemy, troops can maintain their freshness and energy, while those who arrive later may already be fatigued. A wise warrior knows how to limit the enemy's actions without being constrained themselves. They entice the enemy with enticing advantages to make them willingly come forward and hinder their progress to prevent them from advancing. This way, when the enemy is energetic, they can be worn down. When well supplied, they can be starved. And when calm, they can be compelled to act. To achieve victory, skilled commanders launch attacks where the enemy is unable to reinforce, catching them off guard. They deploy troops at unpredictable times, maintaining their stamina even during long-distance marches through uncontested areas. By striking unexpectedly, targeting the enemy's vulnerable positions, success is assured. Furthermore, defending strategic locations makes it difficult for the enemy to mount an effective attack, as they are forced to confront strong defenses. A proficient commander excels in offense, making it challenging for the enemy to defend, while expertise in defense hinders the enemy's ability to launch successful attacks. This art requires subtlety, attaining a state of formlessness, and profound skill, achieving soundlessness. Ultimately, the skilled commander becomes the master of the enemy's fate. To achieve an overwhelming attack against the enemy, focus on exploiting their vulnerabilities. By swiftly withdrawing your forces, you can prevent the enemy from pursuing you effectively. When our forces choose to engage, even the strongest fortifications and deep moats won't stop the enemy from fighting, as we target their critical weaknesses that demand immediate attention. On the other hand, if we prefer not to engage, a simple defensive line on the ground can deter the enemy, redirecting their path of advancement and discouraging them from initiating a battle. Hence, the enemy is exposed while our forces remain concealed. Our troops are concentrated while the enemies are dispersed. By concentrating our forces in one location while the enemy divides into 10, we create a situation where we outnumber the enemy in 1 out of every 10 encounters. This limits the enemy's opportunities to engage us, even if they are unaware of how to defend against us. Therefore, when we defend the front, the rear becomes vulnerable. When we defend the rear, the front becomes vulnerable. When we defend the left, the right becomes vulnerable. When we defend the right, the left becomes vulnerable. If we try to defend all areas, then all areas become vulnerable. We use a smaller number of troops to defend against the enemy, while employing a larger number of troops to force the enemy to defend against us. Understanding the location and timing of a battle enables us to confront the enemy in distant territories. Conversely, lacking knowledge of these crucial factors hampers coordination among different units, hindering support from one flank to another, from the front to the rear, and vice versa. Engaging in combat within proximity seems insignificant in comparison. Despite the size of the army in the state of Shao, its contribution to achieving victory remains questionable. Hence, victory can be attained by preventing the enemy's active participation in the battle, regardless of their numerical superiority. By carefully analyzing different strategies, we gain insights into their advantages and disadvantages. Through diligent probing, we unravel the enemy's movements and patterns. Reconnaissance helps us comprehend how the terrain impacts the fate of our troops. Engaging in battle provides us with valuable knowledge of our strengths and weaknesses compared to the enemy. By presenting an enigmatic stance, we attain a state where our intentions remain concealed. Even the most covert spies and astute strategists are unable to fathom it or devise effective countermeasures. Victory is achieved by exploiting the enemy's vulnerabilities and leveraging our own strengths. The utilization of troops can be likened to the movement of flowing water, which naturally avoids high ground and seeks lower terrain. Similarly, an army maneuvers by evading strong adversaries and targeting weaker ones. Just as water's course is influenced by the landscape, an army's path to triumph is determined by the circumstances of the enemy. Therefore, the deployment of troops does not adhere to rigid conventions or fixed rules, just as water takes on various shapes and directions. Those who can adapt to the ever-changing enemy situation and achieve victory can be regarded as masters of warfare. The 5 elements, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, interact and restrict each other. Seasons undergo constant transformation without fixed durations, daylight length varies, and the phases of the moon are perpetually shifting. The principles of military command are as follows. The commander follows orders from the sovereign, assembles troops and cavalry, and engages the enemy in battle. Military operations are incredibly challenging, requiring the ability to transform indirect paths into direct ones and turn adversity into advantage. A skilled strategist understands the art of using enticing benefits to lead the enemy on a circuitous route, outpace them, and arrive ahead of them. This demonstrates expertise in employing both indirect and direct tactics. In military operations, the objective is to gain advantages, but it is risky to prioritize personal gain for the entire army. Attempting to achieve benefits for all troops is impractical, and abandoning soldiers for personal gain will lead to equipment loss. Therefore, it is crucial to swiftly advance while carrying armor, marching day and night without rest, and covering 100 miles to secure advantages. By doing so, only 1/10 of the troops will reach the destination. If the rush is limited to 50 miles, the vanguard will be lost, and only half of the troops will arrive. Rushing 30 miles will result in only 2/3 of the troops reaching the goal. Without supply and equipment, the army will fail, and without provisions, the soldiers will perish, leaving no means to continue. Hence, if one lacks knowledge of the enemy's strategies, it is unwise to form alliances with them. Without understanding the terrain, including mountains, forests, and marshes, advancing becomes impossible. The guidance of skilled navigators is necessary to secure advantageous positions. Warfare is rooted in deception, driven by self-interest, and characterized by the interplay between dividing and combining forces. The army's movements should resemble the swiftness of the wind, the discipline of a forest, the ferocity of a spreading fire in attacks, the steadfastness of a mountain in defense, the elusiveness of a moon obscured by clouds, and the thunderous speed and intensity of thunder. Plunder the enemy's lands, capture their territories, and divide the spoils. Act according to the circumstances and seize opportune moments. Those who can turn indirect paths into direct ones will attain victory. Such is the method of military operations. According to military administration, effective communication on the battlefield is crucial. In situations where long-distance communication is challenging, drums and gongs are utilized to relay messages. When visibility is limited, flags are employed to coordinate actions. It is essential for the army to act collectively, with brave individuals refraining from advancing alone and timid individuals avoiding solitary retreat. To ensure seamless coordination, torches and drums are used at night, while flags are used during the day to convey changes and movements to the troops. The psychology of the enemy and the morale of their leaders can be targeted strategically. By understanding the fluctuations in their spirits throughout the day, high in the morning, declining during the day, and yearning for rest at night, wise commanders can avoid the enemy's sharpness and launch an attack when their spirits are low and they desire to return. This demonstrates a shrewd understanding of how to utilize morale effectively. Furthermore, utilizing well-organized troops to handle the enemy's chaos and maintaining composure to counter their clamor is another aspect of exploiting psychology. When confronting the enemy on a nearby battlefield, it is essential to face those coming from afar with high spirits, while facing exhausted enemies with abundant provisions. This showcases a keen understanding of how to leverage strength strategically. Lastly, wise commanders refrain from attacking well-ordered formations or strong armies, showing their ability to adapt and master changes on the battlefield. The morale of the enemy and the psychology of their leaders can be targeted. In the morning, people are full of spirit. During the day, their spirits decline, and at night, they yearn for rest. Those skilled in the use of troops avoid the enemy's sharpness, seizing the opportunity when their spirits are low and they desire to return, thus implementing an attack. This is understanding how to utilize morale. Use well-organized troops to deal with the enemy's chaos and maintain composure to handle the enemy's clamor. This is understanding how to exploit psychology. When arriving at a nearby battlefield, face the enemy coming from afar with high spirits and face exhausted enemies with abundant provisions. This is understanding how to utilize strength. Do not attack well-ordered formations and do not attack strong armies. This is understanding how to master changes. Hence, the fundamental principles of deploying troops are as follows. Avoid engaging enemies positioned on high mountains. Refrain from direct assaults against enemies with advantageous hill positions. Be cautious when pursuing seemingly retreating enemies. Exercise caution when confronting elite enemy forces. Resist falling for enemy traps and lures. Allow retreating enemy troops an escape route. Maintain strategic gaps when encircling the enemy. Avoid pushing enemies into desperate situations. These principles form the bedrock of effective troop deployment. The principles of employing military forces encompass commanders following the sovereign's orders and mobilizing troops. In challenging terrains, it is unwise to abandon one's camp. It is important to forge alliances with neighboring forces in crucial transportation routes. In dire circumstances, swift passage through is preferred over lingering. When faced with easily encircled areas, strategic maneuvers should be employed, and in desperate situations, resolute combat becomes necessary. There are certain roads to avoid, enemy forces not worth engaging, cities not to attack, territories not to contest, and commands from specific rulers that can be disregarded. Hence, a skilled commander recognizes the importance of being adaptable, particularly in military strategies. Without adaptability, the advantages of understanding the terrain cannot be fully utilized. Leading troops without flexibility means that even with knowledge of the 5 favorable factors, the true potential of the troops remains untapped. A person with strategic wisdom takes a comprehensive approach, considering both advantages and disadvantages. They address drawbacks while focusing on benefits, ensuring smooth progress. Simultaneously, they attend to benefits while acknowledging concerns, alleviating any worries. They use concerns to persuade vassals to submit, leverage existing foundations to mobilize vassals, and employ incentives to attract vassals willingly. Hence, the principles of deploying military forces do not hinge on assuming the enemy's absence, but rather on thorough preparation and anticipation of their arrival. It is not about assuming the enemy won't launch an attack, but rather relying on robust defenses to withstand any assault that may come our way. Commanders encounter 5 perilous situations that must be handled cautiously. Soldiers with a mindset of fighting to the death, risking their own demise. Soldiers driven by the sole desire to survive, putting themselves at risk of capture. Commanders with an unstable temperament, provoking conflicts and losing rationality. Commanders overly concerned with their reputation for integrity, leading to humiliation and subsequent anger. Commanders excessively burdened by the welfare of their people, resulting in fatigue and inefficiency. These situations are all pitfalls and disasters for commanders when employing military forces. Defeat and sacrifice of commanders often stem from these 5 dangers, emphasizing the need for careful consideration when facing them. In general, when organizing and positioning troops and assessing the enemy's situation, certain principles should be followed. In mountainous terrain, it is wise to utilize valleys and streams, face south for the advantage of the sun at your back, and seize high ground. Avoid launching uphill attacks against enemies in elevated positions. These guidelines are crucial for conducting military operations in mountainous regions. When dealing with rivers, it is advisable to establish camps away from the water. If the enemy attempts to cross, refrain from engaging them in the middle of the river. Instead, wait until they have crossed halfway or more before launching an attack. This strategy provides a tactical advantage. If you plan to engage the enemy in battle, avoid positioning yourself near the water, as it puts you at a disadvantage. Instead, occupy elevated positions and face the sun. It is also important not to position yourself downstream and face the current. These are the general principles for conducting military operations in rivers, lakes, and marshy areas. In salt marshes and swamps, it is crucial to swiftly move through and avoid lingering. If you encounter the enemy in such areas, utilize water and vegetation for cover, positioning yourself with your back against the woods. These principles apply to conducting military operations in salt marshes and swamps. In open plains, it is necessary to select positions that are not easily defensible and rely on high ground for the main flanks, ensuring that the front is lower than the rear. These guidelines are essential for conducting military operations in flat plains. Mastering these principles and employing them effectively played a pivotal role in the Yellow Emperor's victory over the surrounding tribal leaders. To ensure favorable military positioning, it is preferable to establish encampments on dry high ground rather than damp lowlands. Sunlit areas are favored over shaded ones. Being near water and vegetation allows for rest and resupply, while relying on higher ground ensures a steady supply of provisions. Adhering to these principles helps maintain the health of the army and increases the chances of victory. When encountering hills or embankments, it is advisable to occupy the southern side with the main forces relying on it. By following these principles, one can make effective use of geographic conditions and achieve advantageous positioning. When there is rainfall upstream and the water carries foam downstream, it is crucial to exercise patience and wait for the water to stabilize before considering a river crossing. It is crucial to quickly move away from areas referred to as the 6 dangerous positions: defiles, tight spaces, pitfalls, traps, swamps, and narrow passes. Instead of approaching these locations, it is wise to let the enemy come closer. Face them while ensuring that their backs are against these positions. To ensure security when stationed near mountains, obstacles, swamps, dense reeds, or thick forests, it is crucial to conduct meticulous and thorough searches in these areas, as they often serve as hiding places for enemies. If the enemy advances silently, they probably hold advantageous positions to rely on. If the enemy provokes from a distance, it is a ploy to draw us forward. If the enemy sets up camp on open terrain without depending on natural fortifications, there must be favorable circumstances at play. The enemy's intention to launch a concealed attack can be inferred from the movement of trees, as they may be clearing paths for their advance. Be cautious of dense grass, as it could conceal various obstacles, indicating the enemy's use of deception. If birds suddenly take flight in a startled manner, it could be a sign of nearby ambushes. Additionally, the sight of fleeing animals may signify an imminent enemy assault. These natural cues can provide valuable insights into the enemy's movements and help you stay prepared for potential attacks. The enemy's chariots are approaching swiftly when the dust rises in a straight path. The enemy's infantry is advancing when the dust is low and wide. If the dust appears sparse and irregular, the enemy may be disguising their movements with light troops. When the dust is scattered and intermittent, it indicates the enemy is setting up light camps. If the enemy adopts a humble language while reinforcing their military preparations, it indicates their intention to launch an attack. On the other hand, if their language becomes aggressive and they assume an offensive posture, it is likely that they are planning to retreat. If the enemy displays anger but refrains from entering battle for a prolonged period without withdrawing, one should closely scrutinize their intentions. Additionally, when light chariots are positioned on the flanks, it indicates the arrangement of their battle formation. Observing enemy soldiers leaning on their weapons reveals their hunger, while their hasty consumption of water indicates thirst. The enemy's failure to seize advantageous opportunities reflects their fatigue. The presence of crows suggests that the enemy is not nearby. Nighttime disturbances reveal fear and anxiety. Soldiers disturbing one another reflects a lack of discipline among commanding officers. Unstable and disorganized flag movements indicate a breakdown in military order. Troubled officers and soldiers signify fatigue within the army. The killing of horses for food indicates a shortage of supplies. Unused drinking vessels and exposed encampments indicate a desperate and dire situation, where the enemy is preparing for a desperate attack. Consistently talking without purpose and using a gentle tone does not instill trust in leadership. Offering frequent rewards and gifts signals a desperate situation. Employing excessive punishment implies a dearth of effective strategy. Initially acting harshly, but later fearing the troops' resentment signifies a lack of astuteness. When the enemy dispatches emissaries with messages of greetings and peace, their intention is to halt the fighting. If the enemy exhibits signs of anger without initiating combat or withdrawal, it becomes crucial to carefully observe their behavior and decipher their motives. The quality of troops is of greater importance than their quantity. It is crucial to focus on their discipline, cohesion, understanding of the enemy's situation, and the trust and support they receive from their superiors. Those who lack intelligence and underestimate the enemy are more likely to be captured as prisoners. If soldiers haven't willingly submitted, harsh measures will win their loyalty. Without their submission, they won't be effective in battle. Even if soldiers have willingly submitted, but military law and discipline aren't strictly enforced, they can't be relied upon in battle either. Therefore, it's important to use kindness and benevolence to strengthen ideological and political work, earning their goodwill and respect. Simultaneously, punishment and authority should be employed to regulate troop behavior, ensuring uniformity. By maintaining good discipline and enforcing military law, the troops will be obedient. If military law isn't enforced during peacetime, it won't be followed during wartime. Only through maintaining good discipline can the troops be united, fostering loyalty and support. There are 6 types of terrain that commanders must understand and utilize effectively: accessible terrain, entangling terrain, narrow terrain, precipitous terrain, difficult terrain, and distant terrain. Inaccessible terrain, occupying high ground with good sunlight and ensuring smooth logistics provides an advantage for engaging the enemy. Entangling terrain allows for swift attacks if the enemy is unprepared, but caution is necessary as it can become unfavorable if unable to win or retreat. In narrow terrain, refraining from attacking and waiting for the enemy to be halfway through before launching an attack is advisable. Precipitous terrain requires seizing the high ground and blocking the enemy's passage, but caution is needed if the enemy has already occupied the position. In difficult terrain, it's better to withdraw if the enemy has occupied the high ground, while in distant terrain, it becomes challenging to challenge or gain an advantage, due to evenly matched conditions. These principles are vital for commanders, and thorough examination and study are necessary. In military affairs, there are 6 factors known as defeat, laxity, entrapment, collapse, disarray, and retreat. These factors do not arise from geographical conditions, but rather from the shortcomings of commanders. When 2 sides have similar geographical conditions, but one side manages to overcome 10 times its own force, and the opposing side is forced to abandon weapons and flee, it is considered defeat. Laxity occurs when soldiers are fierce, but officers are weak, resulting in a lack of control and ineffective command. Entrapment happens when officers are fierce, but soldiers are weak, leading to their defeat when they fight alone. Collapse arises from internal grievances, unauthorized actions, and the commander's failure to recognize talent, resulting in internal disintegration. Disarray occurs when commanders are weak, leading to chaotic management, tense relationships, and disorder in deployment and formation. Finally, retreat happens when commanders misjudge the enemy's strength, engage in unfavorable battles, and end up surrounded and defeated. Understanding and addressing these 6 factors is crucial for commanders to avoid failure in warfare. The terrain plays a supporting role in military operations. Wise commanders should thoroughly comprehend the enemy's situation, accurately assess the difficulty or ease of the terrain, and calculate the length or brevity of routes. These principles and guidelines are essential for success. Commanders who grasp and apply this knowledge in their operations will achieve victory, while those who lack understanding and overlook these factors are bound to face failure. According to the general principles of warfare, a commander should prioritize the preservation of the lives and property of the people, as well as the fundamental interests of the sovereign. If there is a certain chance of victory, even if advised against by the sovereign, it is crucial to decisively engage in battle. However, if there is no certainty of victory, it is acceptable to refuse to fight, even if the sovereign desires it. A commander who acts in line with these principles becomes the most valuable asset to the nation. To achieve success in warfare, it is crucial to treat soldiers with care and understanding, as if they were your own beloved children. By sharing hardships with them and facing life and death together, a strong bond is formed. However, it is important to strike a balance. Excessive pampering and indulgence without proper command and discipline can hinder their effectiveness in battle. Soldiers should be nurtured and guided like children, but also trained and disciplined to ensure their suitability for warfare. To achieve victory in warfare, it is crucial to have a comprehensive understanding of the enemy's capabilities and one's own troops. Merely knowing that your own troops are capable of fighting or that the enemy is not capable does not guarantee success. Likewise, being aware of the enemy's capabilities while being oblivious to the limitations of your own troops also does not ensure victory. Furthermore, even if both sides possess capable forces, overlooking unfavorable terrain can still lead to failure. Therefore, those who truly comprehend the art of warfare do not act recklessly or blindly. They possess the ability to adapt their strategies and tactics as needed, without depleting their resources prematurely. By understanding both the enemy and oneself, one can navigate the battlefield with confidence and overcome challenges. Additionally, a profound understanding of timing and terrain further enhances the likelihood of victory, making success all the more certain. In warfare, the battlefield can be categorized into 9 types: dispersive ground, facile ground, contentious ground, high ground, serious ground, difficult ground, hazardous ground, surrounded ground, and deadly ground. Dispersive ground refers to fighting within our own territory against the enemy, while facile ground is engaging the enemy in a location close to their territory. Contentious ground occurs when both sides can benefit from occupying a location. Key ground is when both armies can freely enter and leave a location. Serious ground involves a location bordering multiple countries, where arriving first gains the support of most feudal lords. Difficult ground is deep in enemy territory with numerous cities behind us, while hazardous ground features challenging terrain. Surrounded ground allows the enemy to strike a smaller force due to narrow marching paths and distant return routes. Deadly ground requires swift engagement for survival, as delay may lead to defeat. Hence, in areas of scattered terrain, it is unwise to confront the enemy directly. In open and easily accessible terrain, one should not stay for an extended period. On contested terrain, one should refrain from launching impulsive attacks. When facing strategically significant terrain, caution is necessary to avoid hastily severing the enemy's communication lines. In critical terrain, it is vital to foster friendly relationships with neighboring feudal lords. While operating deep within enemy territory, resource acquisition becomes crucial for sustenance. If confronted with hazardous terrain, swift passage is advisable. When surrounded, one must strategize to escape the encirclement. And in deadly terrain, courageous and determined resistance is essential for survival. The ancient military strategists, who possessed great expertise in warfare, possessed the ability to hinder the enemy's coordination, disrupt cooperation between their main and auxiliary forces, impede mutual reinforcement between officers and soldiers, prevent unity between superiors and subordinates, and thwart the effective gathering of scattered troops. In essence, their approach was to engage in battle when the situation was advantageous and to avoid it when it was not. When faced with a formidable, well-organized enemy launching an attack, the strategy to employ is to target what they hold dear. By striking at their most valuable assets, we can compel them to comply with our commands and plans. The key lies in understanding their priorities and exploiting their vulnerabilities to gain the upper hand. The fundamental principles of warfare revolve around executing swift actions, capitalizing on the enemy's lack of readiness, and striking their vulnerable positions from unforeseen angles. The fundamental principle of waging warfare in hostile territories lies in progressively advancing deeper into enemy territory, which strengthens the resolve of our troops and poses greater challenges for the enemy. Simultaneously, it is crucial to seize resources from the enemy's fertile lands to sustain our forces. We must carefully manage our troops' well-being, boost their morale, preserve our strength, strategically deploy our forces, employ clever tactics, and maintain an air of uncertainty to keep the enemy off balance. In situations where troops are pushed to the brink with no escape, they develop a mindset of fighting fiercely without retreat. Their determination to fight to the death yields intense combat. Soldiers in dire circumstances exhibit unwavering focus and unity, especially when advancing deep into enemy territory. When cornered, they fight desperately. Such an army is self-prepared, accomplishes missions actively, unites and cooperates without constraints, and obeys without hesitation. By discouraging superstitions and dispelling rumors, they fight to the death without retreating. Although our soldiers may lack material wealth, it doesn't mean they disregard its value. Their determination to fight desperately doesn't imply a disregard for their own lives. On the day battle commands are given, tears stream down the faces of both standing and lying soldiers. When they find themselves in dire circumstances, they courageously engage the enemy, reminiscent of the bravery exhibited by Shu and Cao in their slaying of foes. A skilled commander has the ability to unify the troops and make them act as a single entity. An example of this unity can be seen in the intertwined snake called Riwen on Mount Heng. Just as attacking different parts of a snake will trigger a coordinated defense, an army can be made to act in a similar manner. Even when people have differences or conflicts, they can come together and support each other like a person's left and right hand when faced with a common challenge. Therefore, it is unreliable to rely solely on formations that symbolize stability. The key requirement for unity in the military lies in ensuring that all the forces of the three armies are united and equally courageous, and in utilizing different terrains effectively. A skilled strategist can bring together the troops and masses of the three armies, uniting them as one, due to the objective environmental conditions that compel them to do so. As a commander, it is crucial to carefully consider and decide on winning strategies while managing and educating the military in a fair and orderly manner. Keeping soldiers unaware of military and political affairs and creating a sense of confusion can be important tactics. Changing plans and positions, taking circuitous routes, and issuing tasks without retreat options can keep the enemy off balance. Commanding troops in enemy territory, gathering forces for dangerous situations, and adapting strategies for different conditions are all essential responsibilities. Understanding the psychological changes of troops in various environments is also crucial for commanders to study and address. When conducting operations in enemy territory, there is a general principle that the deeper our troops penetrate, the more focused and resolute they become. Conversely, if our forces remain shallow, their morale is more likely to disperse. Engaging in combat outside our own borders is a perilous endeavor. The significance of a location depends on its connectivity. Penetrating deep into enemy territory signifies a critical position, while a shallow incursion is less significant. If our rear is well protected, but we face obstacles in the front, it is a surrounded location. And if there is no escape route, it becomes a death trap. These factors must be carefully considered in warfare to avoid failure. Hence, in scattered locations, the troops must be focused and unified in their resolve. In less significant areas, they should advance swiftly. When faced with contested positions, the slower troops must catch up promptly. When encountering crucial locations, cautious defense is imperative. Strengthening alliances and connections with neighboring states and lords is vital in pivotal locations. Deep in enemy territory, the troops should seize provisions from the enemy. In dangerous locations, swift passage is crucial. In surrounded areas, block the gaps and exhibit no sign of retreat. In a death trap, show resolute determination to fight and strive for survival. The troops' psychological changes follow this pattern. When besieged, they resist. When forced, they fight desperately. When deeply immersed in danger, they obey orders. To achieve success in warfare, it is crucial to understand the strategic intentions of other states and establish relationships with them. Likewise, familiarity with geographical features such as mountains, forests, obstacles, and marshes are essential for effective advancement. Guides play a vital role in gaining the advantage of the terrain. Without knowledge in any of these aspects, one cannot be considered a military superpower. The concept of a military superpower involves the ability to intimidate and hinder a powerful state from consolidating its forces. By exerting military might over the enemy, one can prevent them from receiving support and cooperation from their allied lords. Therefore, even without actively seeking relationships with the lords or accumulating power among them, one can still accomplish their ambitions by directing military strength against the enemy, capturing their cities, and dismantling their nation. To achieve victory, commanders should offer exceptional rewards, give unconventional orders, and treat the entire army as a cohesive unit. Assign specific tasks without divulging the strategic intent, and let them bear risks without revealing escape routes. When faced with desperate situations, the soldiers will fight fiercely to survive. In the face of death traps, they will strive to find ways to stay alive. Even in perilous situations, the army can demonstrate subjective initiative, seize the initiative in warfare, and turn adversity into advantage, ultimately transforming defeat into victory. Hence, the crucial aspect of employing military power is to meticulously analyze the enemy's motives, consolidate forces towards the primary assault direction, execute long-range incursions, and seize enemy commanders. This is the essence of accomplishing remarkable feats through astute strategies. Therefore, when commencing military operations, it is crucial to secure the strategic points, disrupt enemy communication, and prevent the passage of their messengers. Additionally, a solemn oath should be made in the temple to instill inspiration in the three armies. As soon as the enemy reveals any vulnerability, swift and decisive action should be taken to exploit their weaknesses and seize advantageous positions without engaging in predictable confrontations. It is essential to break free from conventional norms, adapt to the enemy's tactics, and flexibly determine our own military actions. Initially, maintain a calm and patient demeanor, waiting for the opportune moment. Once the enemy's weaknesses are revealed, act swiftly and decisively, catching them off guard and leaving them no chance to mount resistance. The art of employing fire in warfare encompasses 5 distinct approaches: igniting the adversary's encampments and stables, obliterating their provisions, disrupting their supply lines, setting ablaze their storage facilities, and impeding their escape routes. The successful execution of a fire attack demands meticulous preparation, including the acquisition of combustible resources. The timing of igniting the fire should be thoughtfully considered, considering the dryness of the weather and specific astrological factors, particularly when the moon spins specific directions. The most favorable conditions for commencing a fire attack occur when the moon passes through the Dipper, the Wall, the Wings, and the Wheel constellations. To effectively conduct a fire attack, commanders must deploy troops accordingly and adapt to the different methods mentioned earlier. If initiating a fire within the enemy's territory, it's crucial to have reinforcements ready for support from outside. If the enemy remains calm despite the fire, it is advisable to observe and wait before launching an attack. Assess the situation once the fire weakens and proceed with an attack if feasible or cease if not. Alternatively, if the timing is appropriate, an external fire can be initiated without waiting for internal cooperation. Set the fire upwind to prevent it from blowing back towards the troops, considering that steady winds during the day may calm down at night. By understanding and applying various forms of fire attacks flexibly, commanders can seize the opportunity when the time is right. Hence, incorporating fire as a complementary tactic to an assault can yield substantial outcomes, whereas water can enhance the offensive to a greater extent. It should be noted, though, that water can only impede the enemy's progress rather than annihilate them. It is highly undesirable to engage in military warfare without considering the potential consequences it may have on various aspects of society, politics, and the economy. This is what the ancient saying refers to as exhausting resources, aging the troops. Therefore, wise rulers should carefully consider this matter, and capable generals should take it seriously. They should refrain from acting if a situation is not advantageous, employing troops if there is no gain to be had, or initiating a war if it is not a dire necessity. Rulers should not engage in war based on momentary anger or resentment, and generals should not rashly go to battle due to temporary irritation. Actions should align with the interests of the nation, and if they do not, they should be ceased. It is important to understand that while anger can turn into joy and irritation can transform into happiness, once a nation is destroyed, it cannot be revived, and once a person dies, they cannot be brought back to life. Therefore, wise rulers should exercise caution, and capable generals should be vigilant, as this is crucial for stabilizing the nation and safeguarding the military. When initiating a military campaign with an army of 100,000, undertaking a long march to engage in warfare, the toll on the people's livelihood and the state's finances is exorbitant. The ensuing turmoil and unrest, both within the country and abroad, lead to throngs of idle individuals lining the roads, comprising 700,000 households. Despite years of confrontations, all in pursuit of achieving victory in a single day, the reluctance to allocate resources for intelligence gathering is remarkably imprudent. Such behavior fails to embody the attributes of a competent leader or an advisor who prioritizes the welfare of the people. Wise leaders and perceptive commanders can accomplish remarkable feats through decisive actions, thanks to their deep understanding of the circumstances at hand. However, obtaining such knowledge cannot be reliant on superstitions, analogies, or the positions of celestial bodies. Instead, it is imperative to rely on individuals who possess first-hand knowledge of the situation. Their insights and intelligence become the foundation upon which strategic decisions are made, leading to success on the battlefield. There exist 5 distinct categories of spies, each serving a unique purpose in gathering intelligence: local spies, internal spies, double agents, deceased spies, and living spies. When employed together, these spies operate covertly, ensuring the enemy remains oblivious to the underlying patterns and becoming an extraordinary and invaluable asset for the nation. Local spies leverage the knowledge of residents, internal spies exploit enemy officials, double agents manipulate the enemy's own spies, deceased spies purposefully disseminate false information to be intercepted, and living spies procure valuable intelligence and safely return with it. Thank you for immersing yourself in the timeless wisdom of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. We hope this journey into the realm of ancient strategy has inspired and enlightened you. Let us embark together on a quest for timeless knowledge and stay tuned for more.